During the last 2 or 3 years, I have seen a huge increase in the quality of pixel art in indie games. Although it seems to me that the tendency to make games in this style has stabilized, perhaps due to the decrease in the novelty factor, they are still the vast majority in the indie category, which does not mean that we do not find beautiful games outside this art style. Frontier Hunter Erza's Wheel of Fortune is an excellent example of just that, but it's so much more than just that. Since you are here, just say something about the game, or even better, subscribe to the channel, or like the video, it's a massive help. Thank you a lot. Erza is once again the main character of this IceSitruuna Studios game. After earning her hunter's license in the first game, Erza is now a well-established figure in the Imperial Army. In this game, flying ships are finally invented, and that allows the travel between continents, but, more importantly, allow you to overcome a barrier created by a storm and explore a part of the world completely unknown to everyone. Frontier Hunter Erza's Wheel of Fortune is a Metroidvania roguelite, and it's exactly in the story department that it lacks a bit, because at no point do the characters seem to be very surprised with all the new creatures and monsters that they discover, and only talk about them lightly. Fortunately, the story is not limited to this main arc. There are many more arcs to follow, such as the relationships between Erza and the characters that we unlock and become part of our party, or, in a much funnier way, Erza's relationship with Diablo, a mythological entity that inhabits Erza's hairpin and can communicate through thoughts. I touched on this topic already, but the game is beautiful, and that is a blessing, but also a way of realizing that the game tries to compete in a category for which it is not yet prepared for, since the effort made to show all the details, all the plans, all the universe, all the scenario to create diverse, distinct and unique characters also allows flaws to be detected more easily. You have to understand that I based this review on a version of the game prior to launch, and that many bugs and glitches have already been corrected in the multiple updates that the game has suffered these days. But there are still some. The most annoying ones can even mean loss of progress, especially after the game became more complex in terms of mechanics. And this, combined with a graphical component, made it relatively common for me to advance through mechanics that I believe were not intended to be used. They just happened because the scenario was so intricate that it allowed our characters to access small spaces to which it seems to me that they could not be accessed, and, after that, allowed the unlocking of parts of the scenario that we should not been able to access at that stage. Discovering these small glitches became a focus of my attention, and as a result, I ended up losing some progress from time to time, since some areas that I accessed I could no longer leave. This also allowed me to discover other important details. For example, I thought that all the characters had the same frame, but no, their size is different. The difference is minimal, but it exists. In practice, you don't notice it, but it was important to access or leave those little spaces I've mentioned earlier. The soundtrack is perfectly adapted to each situation, and the same can be said about the sound effects. The voice acting, though, is a little below what I'm used to find in these games, but nothing that spoils the atmosphere, not least because there are moments that are very well made, especially for the voice acting of Diablo. As expected in these games, both the representation of some stereotypes and the romantic interactions representation are very funny and end up consolidating and giving a lot of color to the whole story. As for the gameplay, it is very well executed. Each character can have 2 weapons and has access to lots of moves and tricks that we can find throughout the exploration. In fact, exploration is the main focus of the entire game and, why not say it, the most exciting part. I've never stopped being curious to know what would be in the new room, since the map is very well designed, allowing us to have a perfect picture of what we already know and what remains to be discovered, and also because the reward for exploring is balanced, given that we often feel it's worth investing in scouting every room, as we know we might, and often do, find something valuable. Although the myriad of combos and fighting styles between the different characters is extremely satisfying, allowing styles as different as playing defensively from afar or constantly being in the face of the monsters trying to eliminate them with consecutive combinations of blows and breaks, I noticed that there are some problems in the recognition of inputs by the game, here and there of course, and although it is not something serious, it is a mini annoyance since it happens with some regularity and not just only during fights, also in the jumps or in the recognition that we are trying to grab a ledge, for instance. Without forcing us to do anything, the game shows us that the correct combination of character usage greatly facilitates progression, especially to defeat bosses, but it doesn't literally force us to do it. Just as it doesn't force us to be immaculate in the selection of combos to defeat enemies, even when it shows us that if we invest time in understanding how, each enemy has an optimal way of being fought, and that is, it rewards those who try to play well, but does not exclude the average player of being able to enjoy all that the game has to offer. Another game mechanic that doesn't work especially well is that of being able to call one of our group elements to help us, creating a 2-to-1 moment, if I can describe it that way. Usually the AI isn't very good at these moments, as our helper often doesn't seem to realize they haven't been called in for a coffee break, and many times just stands there watching while I'm taking a beat. Frontier Hunter Erza's Wheel of Fortune is extremely well designed. It combines beautiful graphics, beautiful music, a story that is worth following, even if for the secondary arcs, a fluid and satisfying progression, and a well-executed combat that rewards the best player and does not exclude the average one. It's an easy recommendation for anyone who wants to try it out. See you next time, guys. Bye!